Hey, slackers, Carrasco here. This is the second pilot. We're testing out a new format. Is weird. It's so weird. In comparison to radio, it's like night and day. I
What are the differences that you find?
You're so much more self conscious
Because you're on camera?
because you're on camera, and also because you need to pay attention to where your eyes go, where the mic is, and all this stuff. So when you're broadcasting from the radio, it's like you literally can just shut the light off and talk to the world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you look, it doesn't matter what you wear. You can put your glasses on, take a sip of water, and mute the mic, and so on. It's not something that you can do when it comes to the stuff here. But I watched the podcast that we did last week, and it was interesting. It was interesting because I'm one of my biggest critics, right? But I wanted to do something a little bit different today, and that's the reason why I came here by myself.
Mm.
Because I don't think that preparing sometimes is a good thing. I think that just letting it flow, and you get to the essence of a conversation that you never knew that you could have.
Yeah.
Like you asked me just now if I watched the fights last night. I never have.
So why is it that you don't watch?
I don't know.
You would think that someone who's as into combat sports as you are,
Yeah.
that you would be into UFC.
Don't get me wrong. I'll rewatch the highlights and stuff, and from time to time, if there is a big fight, I'll go and watch it for sure. But it's not something that it's not even something that I think about.
Really?
And yeah, a lot of it happens simply because it's merely coincidental. It's Saturdays, right?
Mhm.
And my Saturday starts at around 4:45 in the morning. My first alarm goes off just for me to get up at 5. I'm up and running on the road at 5:30 or so, and I get to the studio to broadcast the radio show early.
Okay.
7 a.m. I'm already there. Working on the script, working what I'm gonna say, working on some ideas. So by the time 11 o'clock comes, when I'm leaving the radio show, I go home, pick up my bag, and go train. So I get to Octa BJJ at around noon. I take the competition class often. Mostly just I pick up a little bit on the side, but then I just go for rolls. So we do rounds. So I fight until 2, go home, have a shower, get changed, go to the office.
Mm.
So this is, 2:30, I'm at the office now. We're selling cars, we're talking to customers.
Oh, you go into the dealership?
Oh yeah,
Ah,
100%.
Okay.
So, I have already gone through my third job that day
Yeah.
by, 2:30. So I stay there until 6 when we close. After that, go home. I don't know, go for dinner.
You're tired after.
Yeah, and I'm done, man. I pack it in at 8 o'clock on Saturdays.
Yeah, sometimes they go kind of late.
They
It was
do.
a bit late last night. I was falling asleep. Some of the fights were boring. It's tough to stay up sometimes.
Who was Pereira was fighting last night, right?
Pereira and Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, I watched 10 seconds of that fight when he went with, I think it was an uppercut. Yeah, it was an uppercut. He went through the defenses, got him
Oh, yeah,
unstable,
yeah,
and then he
yeah.
took a couple of body shots, and that was the end of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that guy is a savage, man.
he's crazy. He's a scary dude, man.
He's a savage, and everything that comes out about him says that he is bigger than normal. You
Yeah.
can't tell how big he is. He's like 6'3" or 6'4" or something crazy.
Yeah, 6'4", I think.
Yeah, and for the last fight, he lost like 50 pounds for the weigh-in, and then he put it right back for the fight. How?
Yeah,
Like how?
that affects his chin sometimes, though.
Affects his what?
His chin.
Really, eh?
Yeah, yeah. But I was kind of the same. I was at a buddy's house. We ordered the fights.
Yeah.
We ordered some food, and the fights leading up to it weren't that great. So I fell asleep. We ordered it. I was like in and out. I watched about 10 seconds of the fight too because I was asleep. I woke up because I heard my buddy go, oh. I woke up, watched about 10 seconds, and then back to sleep.
Dude, that's what happens to me when I go to the movies, man. Yeah, I take the kids to the movie. It's like, oh.
Me and this guy. So he always gets me to go to the movies, and he takes me to these movies that start late and then they're long, and I fall asleep in the movies. It's like a thing.
Why so comfortable?
Yeah.
And and by the time the weekend comes, dude, I am exhausted.
Yeah.
Like my throughput is enormous, right?
Yeah.
And every time I go to the movies, and if it's something goofy that I don't want to watch, it's an opportunity to nap. And no one bothers me, right? So it's amazing. So I paid $20 for a nap. It's great. But I will go to the movies tonight, though.
What do you
There is a movie that just came out from Matt Walsh that is called Am I Racist?
Yeah.
I will be seeing that tonight for sure because this liberal nonsense is gone crazy, dude. It's going insane. And that guy is a pretty...
He's hilarious, man.
He's so funny.
Did you watch...
What is a woman? Absolutely. So what?
Good. It's I don't know how he does that stuff and keeps a straight face. Like when he's having those conversations, how he can have those conversations and keep a straight face and not... Like he does a good job at not getting worked up.
No, he holds his ground in a way that is like weirdly uncomfortably serious. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I would be laughing so hard when someone that crazy is saying something that crazy in front of me.
Yeah.
But I'll be watching that for sure tonight. I want to take my youngest boy to watch it. I think it's an interesting educational piece.
Yeah.
He's getting a lot of pushback from the left.
I would have assumed that it would. I haven't paid attention to any of the critics on it or what people are saying about it, but I would have assumed. I'm surprised that it's in the theaters. What is a Woman wasn't.
No, it was not widely released. I subscribe to the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
I pay them. It's interesting content from time to time. It just just to balance everything else that's out there. But I watched it through the Daily Wire, and that was interesting, man. That was interesting. I think that interesting is a mild way to say scary.
Scary. That's what I was
it's
gonna
pretty
say.
goddamn scary. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened to me politically. Because look, I am severely embarrassed, and for saying this out loud, right? But I was a member of the Liberal Party for about 15 years in Canada. I paid dues. I had my card.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie about this. When I was a big fan of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the father, I was a big fan of his, but not for his politics,
Yeah.
but for his philosophy. He was a think tank. He could defend a position philosophical to the point that it made you question your own position, which is what you want out of a politician. You want a philosopher. I think that multiculturalism is probably one of the biggest problems that we have in Canada, period. And this is coming from an immigrant. I immigrated here when I was very young. And I think that one of the reasons why I was able to grow as a Canadian is because I assimilated.
Mm-hmm.
I gave up the old ways. I wanted to have a different future for my family.
Yeah.
And I didn't spend the following 36 years trying to relive the country that I left. It made no sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And, I always ask people this question, what are you? Italian Canadian, Irish Canadian, whatever Canadian, right? If Canada and your heritage country ever went to war, which country would you fight for? Like, you're Irish, right?
Irish and English. So my mom was born in England.
Okay.
So Irish, English, yeah.
So you are British Canadian or Irish Canadian? What do you consider yourself? Because with the last name of O'Shea, it's like...
I wouldn't say Irish Canadian because my dad wasn't born in Ireland. Like he's Irish from way back.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's because how Irish culture is, but it's not like that was like a big part of my upbringing.
Okay.
Like he's not like super Irish. It's just that's where.
So you're British Canadian?
I guess I would say British Canadian. My mom was born in England. She came here when she was young.
Yeah.
Her family was pretty into their heritage, I guess. So like my uncle, he was all about, Britain and the history and this and that.
Uh-huh.
But I wouldn't I wouldn't say like I'm British Canadian. I would just say.
So if England and Canada ever went to war, who would you fight for?
Canada.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. In my world, there is no other answer to that.
Yeah.
but you'd be surprised how many people wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's funny, and it's funny even saying that, like prefacing it with this, but like as a white man saying this,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like you could get in hot water for saying that people should assimilate. That it's sometimes the fact that, like, I've got friends whose parents have been here, I don't know, 40 years and don't speak a lick of English.
And you see, and that was my biggest fear, because I anything worthwhile is difficult, and anything worthwhile doing is difficult. Anything worthwhile achieving is difficult, right? And I think that a lot of immigrants, when they come to Canada, or they emigrate to any country for that matter, they try to gravitate naturally to what is easiest for them, and that is to engage themselves with the community, because now they don't have to speak English. They can speak whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know, in my case, you know, I was born originally in Chile. It was so much easier to just hang out with a bunch of Chileans.
What age did you move here?
I was 17,
Okay.
and I came on my own.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, man, I came on my own. So I couldn't speak a lick of English. Zero. I'm talking zero. And I had a choice to make. You know, I left Chile because Chile was awful. And I'm not afraid of saying that. You know, I'm sure that many people's experiences in Chile is going to be like, oh my God, it's a wonderful country. Great. Mine wasn't. And this is the only, you know, lens that I have to look at my life in the old country. Am I a Canadian of Chilean heritage? 100%. I was born in Chile. I was there for, you know, the most formative years of my life. So yeah, there's a lot of ties that I have to the old country, and my whole family is there. The only person that immigrated here was my sister about 15 years ago. But everyone else is there. You know, my aunts, my uncles, my mom, everyone is there. No one ever came.
What was it that made you leave? Like, what you said it was awful. Like, what was the?
I hate using this word because sure, I'll go there. My dad left my mom when I was 1, and my mom was pregnant with my sister. And then my mom left us when I was 5 and my sister was 4. So we grew up essentially on the streets. And we didn't have any money. We grew up in the ghettos of Santiago. My background is not a glamorous life. I mean, the streets were dirt. When it rained, there was mud everywhere inside your house. We had no floors in the house. You know, just to give you context to this, I never had bed sheets my whole life until I came to Canada. You know, you go to bed now, you see sheets. It's like, okay, that's part of what you do. I never had bed sheets. Toothpaste, what's that? You know, that sort of thing. We were really, 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 really poor. So growing up on the streets, it gives you a different perspective of what life is about, because the street is full of predators. So you need to recognize your environment real fast. And, you know, believe it or not, growing up in that sort of dangerous setting, I mean, I was 6 years old the first time I watched somebody get murdered on the street. Wow. And I saw it. It was like from here to where Antonio is. And it's difficult to conceptualize that, and it changes you forever, and it follows you. But I was always that kid that could have gotten into crime. Yeah. I walked that line hard, and you know, the first time I was arrested, I was 9 years old. Yeah, that was the first time I was arrested. The second time,
you should try and get a hold of that mugshot.
Huh? No, when I was 9 years old. Yeah, that would be funny, man. But the second time I was 14. But you know, I think that I always walked a line, but the family that I ended up settling with, which was my grandma's, my mom's side, was very, very religious. We were, Pentecostal, apostolic Christians. And because we were forced to go to church on 3-4 times a week and twice on Sunday, no joke, we would go to Sunday school and then we had mass at nighttime. There was always this underlying fear of God in my head that honestly, it kept me from doing more stupid shit because I did some stupid shit.
Are you still religious? Sometimes it's not quite a yes or no answer, but would you consider?
This is a very interesting question that you're asking me right this very moment. And I tell you, man, the universe speaks to people in the most mysterious ways. When I came to Canada, I was still very religious. I was baptized at the age of 14 because I felt that it was needed at the time. Also, my family was, pressuring me into getting baptized. And 100 of us would be on the streets and we would preach to people. And Chile is 95% Catholic.
Yeah.
So evangelical Christians were the absolute minority.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We were looked upon as being crazy.
Yeah.
So I grew up on that. And when I left Chile and I came here, I was still pretty much a believer. I was a Christian. So when I landed, it was not easy at all. It was almost just as bad as if it was in Chile. You go to a new country, you don't know a lot of people, you don't speak the language, you work in jobs doing minimum wage. I still remember I got a job as a sewing machine operator at a quilting company not far from here. It was Queen and Dufferin.
Okay.
The name of the place was Supreme Quilting.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to ask for a job. And somebody said to me a few days after I came here that if I ever saw a sign that said help wanted, that meant that they needed somebody, right? So I remember going into this place and I pointed at the sign. I couldn't speak English. And the guy pointed at the sewing machine. And I thought, fuck, I can figure this out. It can't be that difficult, right? And I remember watching my grandma, stepping on those manual sewing machines. The ones that they had a pedal? Yeah, they had a pedal. Yeah. So we had one at home. So I remember her doing that. And I stepped on the pedal very, very gently. And I did a straight line. I turned the piece around and I did another straight line. And the guy wrote on a piece of paper, when would you like to start? I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
So I brought it home. I showed it to a buddy of mine that I had met. And so he told me, my first job was $5.65 an hour.
Wow.
That's what it was. I thought, fuck, I'm rich.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because I multiplied it into pesos, right? And the exchange at the time was like 500 to 1.
Yeah.
So then I quickly did the math, and rent was just terrible. But that changed quickly. But I, working in a factory, not able to speak the language, it was a tough thing to do at the beginning because you don't understand the world around you. And most of the people that worked at this place were from Jamaica, from Trinidad, from Guyana. That's where all this big industrial machine operators were. And I remember this because this was we all have pivotal points in our lives, right? There was this Filipino guy that they hired and they put him under me because I became really good at doing this thing that I did. And I trained him, but he was gay.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really gay. Like, you can see it. Like, he was flamboyant. And we became best friends, right? And we would try to understand each other because I couldn't speak English. He couldn't speak Spanish. But we somehow found a way to communicate.
Yeah.
And this kid got the shit kicked out of him in the bathroom. By the Jamaicans and the Trinidadians because being gay in the Caribbean is not, at the time, was not a thing. It was not a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember fighting with this guy, just trying to defend him in the bathroom. So it was a big factory. It would happen often. So we bonded with this dude. And I remember one time he said, I know a way out of this place. I said, how are you going to get out of this place? He says, the army. So He
Were
was.
they allowed? Were gay people allowed in the army? At that point?
He hated. You know, he
Okay,
never
yeah.
said it out loud that he
Yeah,
was gay.
yeah.
We all knew that he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was one of my first friends here, and he left for the army.
Huh.
And I never saw him again. And I thought, damn, maybe that's the way out.
Is that
Right?
how you got into it?
Yeah. I remember at the time I had a long ponytail, and I was working at the factory during the day, and I've always been a scrapper, so I was working as a bouncer at Spanish nightclubs here in Toronto.
Yeah.
The place that I used to bounce at was called Las Brisas up in Weston and Milvan, up in close to Jane and Finch.
Yeah.
Dude, man, every night was a fight. Every night. And I'm not a big guy, right? So every night I would come home like bloody and stuff for the fights that would come up.
Was this before the jiu-jitsu?
It was before jiu-jitsu, way before jiu-jitsu. I mean, I did karate when I was in Chile, but we all did karate in the 80s, right? We all wanted to be Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee and shit. But so during those formative years here in Canada, I remember trying to go to certain churches because I would try to connect with my Christianity. And I've shared this with a few of my closer friends over the last little while because you asked me, if I'm still Christian. And I remember praying for praying for a house, praying for a good career, praying for a nice car, praying for a good wife and healthy kids, and praying for all the things that people prayed for. And I never got it. So I spent years, 18, 19, 20, and nothing came true. And one day I said, fuck this. This is all a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie. My family lied to me. There's no one listening. So for the following 30 years, I became a devoted atheist. And I would pick fight with Christian people for sport. Because I memorized the Bible. I memorized the scriptures. So I could argue with these people. When Jehovah Witnesses would come to my house, let's go.
Yeah.
You know what the first question that I would ask was?
What's that?
Why does God hate amputees? And most of them would say, why are you asking me this? And I said, show me in the history of the world why God has never cured an amputee. And that would be the end of the argument.
Yeah.
My arguments became so unbelievably precise that I went into an echo chamber. I convinced myself that there was no such a thing, that it was all a lie that we have been told to make us comply, to make us obey, to make us obedient to everything that, and it started from the church. So, dude, man, I dug my heels into that deep. And something interesting is happening. It was I would say about 8 months ago. I get up super early in the morning, and my wife is so amazing, man. I'm so fortunate to have this girl. I got up super early. I woke her up. I said, I can't sleep. Let's go. So we went to Starbucks. We're the first people in at 5:30 is when they open. We got a coffee, and we went down to the Oakville waterfront.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever been there before the sun comes up.
Oh, yeah.
But the water is like glass.
Yeah.
It's like glass, and you can see the Toronto skyline in the distance. And then if you stay there long enough, you start hearing birds and stuff, and then you see some sunlight coming out from the other side. And then everything just gets bathed on this sea of honey, of gold and pink, and the sun comes up and you start seeing everything come to life. And something hit me, man, in a way that I hadn't thought about before. It was so beautiful to be there at that moment, and I thought, fuck, this can't be an accident.
Yeah.
It can't be. It can't possibly be. It's way too beautiful for it to be random. So this planted somewhat of a splinter in my brain. I couldn't explain it. So it was bothering me for months. And I didn't know how to shake it because I don't want to think that there is a God. I fought it.
Well, you spent the last 30 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue one day, I don't know what I was doing. I started to think, why is it that I stopped believing, right? So that thought came to me. I was asking for a career. I was asking for all these things. And then I looked at my life.
You had everything that you were praying for. That you had been praying for when you...
Yeah. The only thing I didn't pray for at the time was the only thing that I should have prayed for, which was patience. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And you see, religious people usually don't swear. Fuck that. I said, fuck. Something is speaking to me, and I don't even know how to interpret this. Then I came across, this is all, the timelines are going to be mixed because I wasn't planning to talk about this morning, but let's go. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
A few years back, I met this guy that owns a gym in Oakville, Dan Thiessen from Radix Performance. I don't know if you know him.
I went to school with him and his brother Nate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I met him, and I remember my first jiu-jitsu class was in his gym because it was another school that had a little spot in there. So I became kind of acquainted with Daniel. And Daniel was one of the sweetest men I've ever met in my whole life. Like, there was not a single bad bone in his body. And, the things that he would talk to me about were things that people didn't normally talk about. He was a deeply Christian guy, but he never told me that he was Christian. You understand that? He was just living that life. And through those exchanges with him, I don't know how this came about. I was introduced to his other brother, Michael. Michael owns a landscaping company. So when I met him, he started to do all the landscaping for all my businesses. And when I talked to him, I became really close to Michael. And Michael was the exact same way. There was not a single bad bone in his body, and all he wanted to do was just to be of service to people. And there was no way that I couldn't not trust this guy, because the persona that he was giving me was one of the sweetest, kindest men. But don't get me wrong, he's a savage. Mm-hmm. But he was gentle in the process. So now it's two people. Then I needed to do some renovations in my house. And Michael said to me, why don't you talk to my little brother, Nathan? Then I met Nathan.
Yeah.
And Nathan is a special character because, him and his partner, Jacob, they went into the back and did a bunch of stuff that I needed to do, my fence, the backyard, the deck, and a bunch of things. And I would see him every day for, 3-4 months. There was not a single bad bone in this guy's body. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, fuck, there is a trend here. There is a trend. Mm-hmm. They're all Christians. But they're a different type of Christians. They're normal Christians. They swear. Mm-hmm. They get mad. But they're good people. And I thought they all have one thing in common. Where did they come from? So they mentioned to me that their dad was the head of a congregation at an evangelical church up in Trafalgar. Mm. The name of the place is called Joshua's Crossing. It's on Trafalgar, just north of Dundas. And I heard that he had a men's group that he just gets together with dudes to talk about life and all the shit that they're going through on a regular basis. And for a long time, I kept on meaning to go there, but it's almost at the same time that my radio show is on. So I remember saying this on air, if one day I don't show up here on time or I leave the show early, it's because I'm going to church. I fought it, man. I fought it for a long time. And about, I would say, maybe 3 months ago or so, I said, it's time. Yeah. So I went. I was scared, man. Fuck. I raised my kids atheists. We laugh at religious people. How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
How am I going to sort this shit out? Because there's too much to undo.
It's heavy.
Huh?
That's heavy, yeah.
Yeah, it weighs heavy on me because now those crazy nut jobs that I used to talk about, am I one of them? I was an undercover. You know, it's like all those deeply homophobic guys, they turned out to be gay, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I felt that was happening to me. So I remember walking into the church, and this man who happens to be a really interesting combination of these three guys, he said, "Mr. Carrasco." He recognized me. I could see tears in his eyes. It was impossible not to connect with the man. There is something so deeply moving and special about this guy that I don't think he knows he has it. The man is intoxicating. He sat down and he said to me, "You know what, Greg? I've been praying for years and years and years that somebody with a voice comes and visit me." So we spent some time together. We prayed. I left. And my immediate reaction after I left was like, fuck this, man. I can't do this. Like, I can't do it. Because the Bible said, you know, you need to be hot or cold. You can't be lukewarm, man.
Yeah.
You know, you either just fight it all the way and, you know, go to your grave thinking that there is nothing out there, or you try to convert people.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to do either now.
Yeah.
Somewhat things have changed. But, you know, in answer to your question, am I a Christian? Yeah.
Yeah. It seems, is that like the first time you said that out loud? You can see that kind of good.
Wow.
Oh, that's good. I can see you getting a little bit emotional about it. It's good.
You see, this is the beauty of real shit. You can't hide from it. And I think that for a long time, I felt that I was way too flawed and imperfect to be a Christian, because fuck, I did a lot of bad things. Nothing criminal like that, but you know, I misbehaved a lot. And but then Nathan was the one that says that that's the reason why your voice is important, because you are imperfect. And Jesus wants you that way anyways. Because there's a lot of people who pretend to be perfect at churches, but they're not. They pretend to be saint. They pretend to be holy. But that's what drove me away from church in the first goddamn place. Because they were all liars. You know, they would preach that God was about love and forgiveness, and meanwhile they would go home and beat the shit out of their kids. And I was one of them. So I am exploring my newfound sentiment in relation to religion, because I'm not a religious person. But if you ask me if I believe, you got them right, I do. You got them right, I do. So I need to find a way how to make this useful. I need to find a way how to be the example that Daniel, Michael, and Nathan and Martin Thiessen were in my life. Because never once, not once, dude, they tried to convert me on anything that they did. I just watched them behave And that's all I needed to see, that I was safe around them. We make ourselves unsafe by the shit that we do. But the truth is this, that, we have confused ourselves into thinking that in order for you to be good, you need to be nice. Jesus was not that nice. He wasn't, man. When he went to the market and he saw all these people trying to, kind of finagle and business their way into heaven, he tossed all the tables. He kicked them off. He pushed them away. He wasn't that nice, but he was good. And I think that those two things they're interesting concepts that we don't analyze on a daily basis. Especially when we look at our politicians. We think of them as having to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, I think that people think that they're good because they speak nicely. They put on that political sort of face and act nicely on camera and say the right things, but then they're not good people when they're like doing things,
I think that's why an honest politician will never succeed.
Yeah.
Because are you going to raise my taxes? Yes. Are you going to cut services? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to elect you. But that was the truth. Don't you want me to tell you the truth? Yeah. No, just lie to me. And that's where the issues become. Because we don't expect enough of our politicians other than for them to portray an image that pleases us, that makes us feel safe. And that's the problem that we have today. We see it everywhere. But I honestly think that the problem runs a little deeper than just crappy politicians saying the things that we want to hear. I think that, I subscribe to the Jordan Peterson Online University. I don't know if you've heard about this. Yeah. So I'm one of the alumni there.
Yeah.
I'm taking the first course that is called Nietzsche, Philosophizing with a Hammer. Love the title, man. Love the title. And, Nietzsche was the one that says that God was dead, that we had killed it. We have killed him. And I think that the farther we move away from God, the more difficult it will be for us to find righteous men that would lead us. And whether it's a man or a woman, it's immaterial. When I say men, I'm talking mankind. Because we're moving away from God. All you need to do is just, what would Jesus do in this? What would he do in this? And next thing you know, your whole parameter, your viewpoint changes. It changes on everything. Because when you have a standard that is set by someone better than you, and you follow that standard, it's impossible to stray. That's why as fathers, we have a responsibility that is beyond anything that you could possibly imagine. You get to say it, you get to set the example. Mothers will teach your children how to love. Fathers will teach them how to live. And there are way too many families out there without fathers in there. There are way too many broken places. Believe me, I've been a victim of one of them. I've done everything possible to always live within a walking distance of my children's lives. But the reality is this, that we don't need less masculine power in our society. We need more fathers. Removing the father from the family nucleus is shown to be catastrophic. But not just fathers. We need good men. And the question that we need to ask ourselves sometimes is are you a good man? If you're not, why not? If you're planning to be, why not now? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't ask ourselves those questions. And, at one point in your life when you become successful enough and you can take a step back from the daily grind and take an introspective look on your own life, and you get to think about this shit. What is my legacy? What would people think of me as when I'm gone? If I were to die today, what would people remember me as? As a selfish asshole businessman that took everything from everyone and left nothing on the bone for people to feed from? Would people remember me as a selfish idiot? As a pompous guy? Would people remember me as a good father? As a good teacher? As a good mentor? We need more good men in our society. And the only way that we can find more good men in our society is by us becoming that man that we seek. You know, if your son turned out to be just like you, Nick, would you be happy? Like, be honest with yourself. If he turned out to be just like you, would you be happy? It's a tough question to answer, isn't it?
Yeah. I want him to be better than me. Like, obviously, I think about this stuff often. You know.
Are you a Christian? Do you believe in something?
So I have a very similar sort of timeline as you.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough. So
How old are you, by the way?
33.
Okay.
33.
So I got 20 years on you, son.
So when I was a young kid, my mom read the Bible to me, and my mom's not like super religious,
Mm-hmm.
but she read the Bible to me as like a bedtime story. And I remember I wanted like a cross necklace.
Yeah.
My parents were divorced, so we didn't have a lot of money. My mom was like, go ask your father to get you one. So I asked him about it, and he's Irish, so he was raised Catholic. And when I asked him about it, and I don't blame him for his response.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked, what do you want that for? And I was like, oh, Jesus will protect me and this and that. And he was like, that doesn't exist. He's like, do you think that God would allow, like, if there was a God, that there would be, all this war, like children with bone cancer and this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and blah, blah, blah. And I remember being like, yeah, you're right. So again, same like you, like I spent most of my life atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty good at like debating or arguing with people. And I was the same as you. I could pick these arguments apart. And then, when I was a rebellious teenager, I started looking at religion as like, I already wasn't religious. I looked at it as like a tool that was used to like control people, to get them to behave. And that lasted for most of my life until, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And I don't think I'm not quite as far as you where you are now, but it got to a point where I started, it got to a point where I went from being like atheist and thinking that religion was
Nonsense.
Yeah. And that that it was people who were like looking for, to be controlled or told what to do, or or just idiots. And then it got to a point where I started thinking, okay, well, you know what? The basis of most religions is pretty good.
Yeah, be a good person.
Be a good person.
Tell the truth.
Yeah.
Don't do anything bad to people.
Yeah.
Okay?
So
I can get behind that.
Exactly. So I started looking at it like, okay, you know what? I don't believe in it, but maybe it's not the dumbest thing. Like maybe it's a good thing, because if you do live by those things, like the world would be a better place. Like it's like if someone is religious and they're, you know, whatever. I didn't think that it was true, but I thought like, you know, it's not the worst thing. And then I don't know what it was that sort of changed my mind. Maybe it was like reading or listening to podcasts and hearing people speak about it. But I started like wondering if I started getting more curious about it and thinking like maybe, you know, there's so much. Okay, one of the things that I thought was there's so much evil going on. And like, I mean, like there's things that I think that are happening that are so like just to the core evil
Mm-hmm.
that there's gotta be, if that exists, like, which I fully believed,
Mm-hmm.
there's gotta be something on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like, it's
Of
like,
course.
if there's like true, pure evil, there's gotta be something that's true, pure good. And so then, and I'm also in like, I wasn't happy with the way my life was going or where I was at in life. And so I started, you know, trying to do like manifest stuff, you know, not so much material things, but just like a better existence, I guess.
Sure.
And so around the same time that I started doing, because every morning, like when I work out, I wake up early, go to the gym, I'll do like sauna and cold shower.
Yep.
And so I started just sort of like messing around with, I guess, so my own version of praying, I guess.
Meditation, praying. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's not like I will go like, oh, you know, I don't sit there with my hands together and it's like, oh, hello, God, or however you're supposed to do it. But I kind of sit there, I close my eyes, I put my hands like this, I just try and relax, and I just try and I start with things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And then, you know, people I'm grateful for or whatever. So I kind of, I guess, say thank you for, like, appreciate that or recognize that.
Yeah.
And then things that I would like to see. And again, I start with what I'm grateful for, and then things that I would like to see for other people. And then I throw in a little bit of like, you know, what I wouldn't mind to improve or change for myself. So I don't know that I believe in, that I'm at the point yet, at least, of being like a Christian or whatever, but I'm sort of like on a personal journey in that direction, I would say.
Dude, I think that, you know, the introspective aspect of what you just said to me is part of every man's awakening. We, at some point, we become self-aware. It's just that you are ahead of me by almost 20 years. It took me 50 years to put myself in a position in which I felt confident enough to be wrong. You know, and I can tell you this. You want to look for God somewhere? You want to tell you where to look?
Yeah. Just tell me. Yeah.
Because you're going to see him on the spot. On the spot. Look at your little girl, your little boy's eyes. Once you start understanding that his presence is everywhere, you don't have to look very far because the whole universe speaks to you. Let me tell you something crazy, okay? And I was listening to you speak. I went very early to Shoppers this morning because I was training this morning with the boys. I started a dad's club at the jiu-jitsu school, so all the dads show up at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. And one crazy thing, when we say goodbye after the end of the class, I said to the guys, boys, I want you to do me a favor for this week. I want you to think of one thing that you are grateful for. Pick something that you're going to show crazy gratitude for. Think about it, because often this stuff is all around us and we miss it because we're not looking for it. So I want you to tune yourself into it. Like change your frequency a little bit for things that you're grateful for. So we'll talk about it next Sunday. That's one thing. And you just said the same thing here. I was at the counter at Shoppers, and this little old lady out of the blue, she's staring at me. I looked to the side like, what the? Like, I wonder if what's going on with this lady. And then she says, Caesar, eh? And I said, oh, my shirt. And I said, yeah. She says, the fall of Babylon. Like, what the hell this lady's talking about? She left an eerie mark in my brain. So I went to the car. It's like, what is the fall of Babylon? And then he brought me right back to the Bible. It seems like, I guess, look, I don't want to feel as if I'm looking for things and I see them everywhere, because sometimes, you validate your own assumptions. You become an echo chamber of whatever you're looking for. But the reality is this, that I think that this works just like in life, and I've said this on the radio show many times before. In Spanish, there is an old saying that says that you only have two types of people. You have flies and you have bees. If you release a fly into an environment, it doesn't matter what environment it is, that fly is going to manage to find shit. So that's all that's looking for. It's looking for shit. But then if you release a bee into the same environment, it doesn't matter where the environment is, that bee is going to manage to find sweet and honey and color.
Yeah.
So if we tune ourselves to look for the right things, if that becomes what you do, if you want to tune yourself for opportunity, you will find them everywhere, dude, everywhere. The Bible says, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. But that also works for problems.
Yeah.
That also works for women. That also works for money. That also works for everything. So we need to be careful with the choices that we make. Because I can tell you, man, when they're teaching you how to ride a motorcycle, which is one of the most wonderful experiences of my life, is freedom. I can disconnect.
Do you ride?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I've been riding for 30 years. I have a V-Rod. Harley Davidson V-Rod.
Yeah.
Show you a picture before I go. When they're teaching you how to ride, they say, don't look at the guardrail. You hit it.
Yeah.
Look at the exit. Look at where you're going.
Yeah.
Look at where you're going. Look at where you're going. Lift your eyes up. Look at where you're going. When you're learning to ride a bicycle, they tell you, don't look at the tire in the front. You're going to crash. Look at where you're going. Why? Because if you look at where you're going and you start with the end in mind, you'll be amazed as to what materializes in front of you. And although I'm still in the process of accepting my new position on Christianity, I understand one thing though. You do good, good happens to you. Just give relentlessly, endlessly, just give everything. And sometimes you're going to get screwed over. It happens. But Marcus Aurelius said, don't expect the third thing. It didn't make sense to me when I read it. It's in the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, he said, don't expect the third thing. Do something good. You feel good. They feel good. Don't expect the third thing. Don't expect a thank you. Don't expect payback. Don't expect anything. Because the moment that you put a condition onto what you're doing, is when you start becoming disappointed. Do it because you can. We've been talking for an hour, son.
Flew by.
And this has probably been one of the most important conversations of my life. You never know when your life is about to change. You just need to tune yourself in. Tune into the right frequency and good shit happens. Thank you for joining the Carrasco Show. This is Nick O'Shea. He had no idea that we were going to talk today.
It's a surprise. It was a good surprise, though.